Embarking in Tahiti, we passed one of the most expensive yachts in the world, but then immediately headed in a very different direction.
This does not look like a cruise to me.
Except it is. A unique hybrid cargo one that still has most of the fixings of your typical Tahitian voyage.
With the added element of freight, I see.
Fascinating freight, that is.
All business in the front, but party in the back.
Making Aranui 5 the mullet of the seas.
Delivering passengers and cargo to the beautiful Marquesas Islands. On the one-of-a-kind vessel from Aranui Cruises.
You're watching our review and tour of the mysterious cruise/cargo ship, and shore experience is only on Jason and Heidi's popular cruising.
Once on board, guests are first treated to a cruise-style pool deck and warm dancing welcome in papiete. But the reality of a cruise and cargo combo also makes itself known fairly quickly.
Like a traditional freighter, Aranui 5 has no stabilizers, so the ship rolls and pitches significantly. So it's best reserved for the hardiest of travelers. With that said, I was admittedly a kid in a candy shop when it came to the cargo culture.
That's my husband for you, always quite the gearhead.
Well, I mean, look at all of this. If you ever wondered what it was like to sail aboard a genuine freighter, this is the most comfortable way to do just that, as everything from these sponsored racing canoes to fruits, vegetables, and meats was delivered daily, and I simply could not get enough of the cargo activity along the way.
Let's start exploring the ship itself on Deck 10 as we work our way down from the sun deck. Impressively painted murals celebrating the line's recent 40th anniversary frame a wraparound on a level that would be off limits to passengers on a typical cruise ship. But here the utility deck is included among those accessible to guests seeking a good view of everything below.
By the way, if you haven't already done so, we invite you to please subscribe to our channel to enjoy all our other cruise content, while I hang out on the cool publicly accessible bridge wing to take a gander at the cargo happenings in the bow, as a pair of cranes and their expert operators carefully orchestrate the maneuvering of forklifts and more. After all, the ship must carry its own heavy equipment to jockey all of its freight once offloaded, either directly to a pier or onto intermediate barges, as you'll soon see.
For those less interested in freight, however, Aranui 5 remains one of the only ways to visit the remote Marquesas Islands such as Nuku, Hiva. And more akin to a river cruise, the line actually includes several daily shore excursions, like 4x4 safaris deep into the island's interiors, where rugged but architecturally impressive Christian churches feature as reminders of early missionary endeavors. Even using regional breadfruit tree wood in this one's stations of the cross carvings. As believers ourselves, we greatly appreciate such dedicated artistry to the faith.
After a morning devotional, it wasn't long before we were back hitting the pavement, snaking our way deeper into the jungle canopy. And what awaited once we descended back to the beach was simply magnificent. I had always heard the Marquesas were more barren than the Society Islands of French Polynesia my wife and I had cruised to previously, but such outstanding topography constantly proved otherwise. Still alive and well on the islands is also a preservation of the native people's original cultural artifacts and ceremonies, like this ritual demonstration in the roots of a towering banyan tree, at archaeologically significant ruins no less, where the performers were still playful, cracking a smile in between otherwise stern expressions. The only unfortunate thing was the bridge to see even more of the site was temporarily in disrepair, but our capable ship anxiously awaited our return.
As Jason showed off his uniform of a Roosevelt's Tropical Minion shirt, Tilly Airflow hat, and signature jorts. We really need to get Roosevelt's and Tilly on board our channel as sponsors, I think. Just like this ship placed this canoe back on board before reaching its final destination.
Along with the ladder rack truck like my carpenter dad used before he recently passed away. Here's a heavenly tribute to you, buddy.
Deck 9, where my father-in-law Mark would have loved watching all the cargo operations with my husband, is where the Sky Bar serves as an observation lounge for just that, observing even more in the way of glorious freight. A free activity that only costs extra should you wish to order a cocktail while doing so. Complimentary, on the other hand, is this self-serve coffee and snack station with its croissants in the morning and biscuit cookies in the afternoon.
Thankfully for my waistline, I didn't discover the latter until later in the voyage. Daily briefings were also held here, and since complex logistics were not as clearly spelled out in printed programs, it was definitely a requirement to attend each. If you're curious as to why the center section of the scenic venue is unusually blocked, there's a structural and operational reason. It contains the motor assembly for the forward elevator. While it's great the industrial-style ship showcases 2 elevators in addition to stairs, there's another related curiosity. When the ship's pitch and roll exceeds certain limits, an alarm triggers them to shut down. and both were out of order by the end of our cruise, which is most unfortunate for those with limited mobility, as stair lobbies were the only option until repairs could be made. But kudos to the working vessel for carrying spare parts as needed. Also, to get it out of the way, Nine's open deck is home to one of several port-side smoking areas astern. As much as I dislike secondhand fumes, I must say they were mostly swept away by breezes when underway, but they did rear their ugly heads more when the ship was stationary. But I suppose these areas do cater to the international mix of French, English, and German speakers.
Deck 8's comparable open deck area was even used once as an al fresco dining area for a lunch buffet on Jason's sailing. Even though I couldn't make it this time around, you can be sure I would have enjoyed the pasta selection offered that midday. And there's still plenty more in the way of dining to come, so stay tuned, fellow foodies.
In fact, next on our French Polynesian itinerary were some of the best fruits I've ever tasted. The regional mango was out of this world, and every time my friend and I came across some, we devoured it instantly. Meanwhile, there are also lots of shopping opportunities from island to island, and the wood and stoneworks were equally impressive for those hoping to take pieces home. Always aplenty on an Aranui cruise is a demonstration of regional song and dance. And if the locals were sweating this much in the humidity, you can be sure I was too. It sure is toasty in the Marquesas, so word of wisdom, never wait until it's too late to hydrate. Of course, contributing to the steamy air was the steady supply of rain from time to time, which made for a perfect opportunity to reflect and wax poetic about mysteriously abandoned things. Not the least of which was this surely once prized but now derelict sailboat, pounded by wave after wave. And juxtaposed against our own ship in the near distance. She may not be one of the most handsome of cruise ships, but as cargo ships go, she is quite a stunner, and a rare breed to accommodate passengers among its precious freight. Perfectly contrasted again against another seagoing craft, and even more abandoned equipment, this time previously used for construction. Construction that still goes on to this day, thanks to the building materials delivered by Aranui 5 and the friendly communities the ship supplies. There really is quite a joie de vivre in the Marquesas, as evidenced by its playful children jumping into the local marina. And always satisfying my taste for large cargo and small parcel activity were said daily freight operations, like lofty lumber loads that would make my dad proud. Remarkably, all of this was conveniently seen right off our balcony too. Ever the hiker, my best friend Alex alternatively climbed to the cross atop the hill. While I adventured more casually back on board.
It sure seems you boys had a blast, especially occupying the plush premium suite accommodations of cabin 7317, complete with multiple entry hanging hooks. But how did our teddy bear friends evaluate the 205 square foot space? Well, they mostly appreciated its aforementioned balcony outside and delineated bedroom and living areas inside, particularly as artistically separated by this decorative geometric panel. And the beds themselves were delightfully cozy and soft for resting off a day's adventures, even when occasionally combating rough seas at night. However, not teddy bear approved are neither nightstand having any electrical outlets nor USB charging ports to speak of. But at least the vanity across the way has multiple European-style ones to compensate. And storage is just as plentiful in the first of two closets, only occupied as expected by requisite life jackets above an expansive space for hanging clothes. And the vanity opens up an entire array of soft close drawers dotted by a stool, as well as an additional chair to get ready at. While a second closet contains two sides with a stocked mini fridge, shelving, and a safe on the left. And more shelves and a bonus hanging space on the right. As spacious as the overall suite is, you might expect the bathroom to be as palatial, but it's actually quite standard by comparison. Sharing its layout with most other cabins on board are a small corner shower, angled toilet, and a hairdryer, and glass shelves mounted above a singular sink. Shout out to Toto for the premium basin though, in addition to a bar of soap, at least here. The toilet unusually requires pushing a few seconds on the button to flush, and the shower is smaller than ideal for a suite, with a flimsy shower curtain and wall fixtures further encroaching, and only liquid toiletries provided here. But we love to see that rack towels can be hung from 2 more hooks behind the door. There's also a flat panel television back in the main room, along with the additional amenities of a complimentary twice-a-cruise laundry bag, excluding socks and underwear, and a coffee maker. Free internet access is similarly available in the observation lounge for a limited window in the morning and evening, as are refillable water bottles throughout the sailing, and balconies are marvelously fume-free.
When you're ready to book, we recommend doing so through our sponsor, Fairy Godmother Travel, who will magically take care of all your trip planning absolutely for free. To get your complimentary quote, just click the link right here, or follow the website, phone number, or email address below. Proving that Aranui 5 is still very much a proper cruise ship, there is a pool deck where guests can take a dip, provided it's not too sloshy from the high seas. And it's this surrounding that the line sets up a couple of great deck barbecues, with the accompaniment of more regional entertainment. Honestly, the included self-serve buffet food and elevated full-serve courses plated here are so good and better spread out among patrons that I'd rather see the line lean more into alfresco alternatives versus meals in the still-to-be-seen, claustrophobic by comparison main dining room below. Regional flavors served on deck by Moana and other waitstaff friends are more authentic and superior in my opinion to gourmet takes in the restaurant. And holy moly, will you look at those desserts! With any luck, the calories consumed on board were burned off by these dancers on our behalf. Or at least my traveling companion and these gents managed to lose some pounds in the process of being put on the spot. And the ladies were also good sports to learn a traditional move or two. As a relatively small cruise ship, there's not much in the way of so-called specialty dining for an extra cost. Only Mokai Nui loosely fits the bill as an a la carte price poolside grill. Since it's not included, it got surprisingly little action aside from mostly crew, and yours truly, but it really is worth the added patronage. For smile-prepared panini sandwiches, juicy hamburgers, and hearty cuts of meat off its wide-ranging menu. No offense to the banquet-style restaurant and its lovely diners downstairs, but sometimes this introvert just needed a break from the social affair.
That and a required glass of Veuve Clicquot I certainly understand. As previously mentioned, one included dinner served by the pool was a bit more elevated and fully served, and my husband enjoyed the refreshing seafood salad, beef fillet, and creme brulee, but I will say dining is limited on board. Other than dietary alternatives, lunch and dinner menus are set, and courses often favor fish, which would have been less to my liking. Still, there is no denying the inviting outdoor atmosphere that is this poolside setting for further live music and dancing. And it is never long until the islands beckon guests back shoreside, as in Huka, where a dramatic inlet puts the industrial tenders to good use, shuttling guests back and forth. Now, if this doesn't look like a veritable Disney ride, I don't know what does. Passengers are adventurously offloaded in cargo fashion, safely of course, and at least not hoisted by backhoe. Along the way, one can't help but wonder just what all of these deliveries are, and later on, Jason did find out some to quench his curiosity. But certain mysteries will forever remain, and I do believe that is part of the appeal.
This island was known for its wild horses and riding them, but we opted for horsepower of a different kind to whisk us away. And a local garden and ancient statuary were only part of the amusingly phallic destination, as we also appreciated more flora and fauna. And further mysterious, lush portals, and bamboo perhaps leading eventually to something from the Dharma Initiative.
This is the orientation film for Station 6, or the Orchid. It is not a botanical research unit.
Might this be the elusive canoe station? Surely only Benjamin Linus knows. In either case, channeling my dad again, I sure appreciated the Wood Museum and its beautifully grained specimens. Appropriately heading to another cross and its scenic overlook above a short airstrip. Wood aficionados have plenty to shop for here. as did petroglyph fans enjoy these impressions. And did I just happen to find my Polynesian doppelganger in statue form? I think maybe I did. Back at the landing, cargo activity was still well underway, and a tendered return was in our immediate future. Before anchoring for the night to take in a unique freight-filled sunset.
How romantic. But personally, I'd rather head to Deck 6 and the Veranda Bar for a potent potable. Naturally, cocktails, beers, and the like cost extra here, but it is worth pointing out that house wines and juices are poured for free at lunch and dinner in the restaurant, should you wish to budget accordingly. Otherwise, a full bar is at your disposal on Aranui 5, and should you desire some salty crunchies, so to speak, there are plates to that effect. But if you're anything like my husband, you would probably down a local beer or two, so that's exactly what he did to try the regional varieties. And he came to the conclusion that he prefers the amber in the glass. Surprisingly, this will be me getting a little shippy about shippy things for a change. Similar to the elevator motor blocking out part of the observation lounge, the structural block to the right is displaced because of the dip in Deck 7's pool. What can I say, folks? He asked me to explain. Less technical and more restful, though, is the bar's open deck space at the stern, where a sip of champagne and a crossword puzzle I can easily get behind, especially on a sunny sea day such as this.
And this is where I would have bought my wife another black pearl or two if she had been on board with me. The deck plan lists this venue as a games room, but it's currently set up as a pearl shop instead.
If I had been on board with you, you still could have bought me one.
Fair point. I did bring home Tahitian wine, but more on that in a second. On the opposite side of the pearl shop is a humble included library. It's well stocked, but its games and volumes are rather tired and in need of a refresh. Like the passenger complement, pages are multilingual, so I'd bring my own book if you wanted to ensure reading material in one's native language. To my great delight, more Marquesan cargo was still to be supervised in Tahuata.
Yep, that sounds about right. Leave it to the gearheads to want to check in and make sure all the cargo is properly cargoing.
Bananas included. Now my tropical minion shirt is even more appropriate.
Banana? Stuart? Banana? Banana!
I mean, I suppose to minions, bananas are a religious experience. But to the rest of us, there's Jesus. So it was great to see such devotion on the islands, as the crew even led worship in this beautiful church. You wouldn't think a destination as lush as this would require any more plants, but lo and behold, there were some being delivered via Aranui 5. And a quick Google search indicates boxed agricultural food processing of some sort from the USA as well. It's all in a day's work delivering even Cool Whip in one of the boxes. Now I know the minions placed this order. With a little push, we were off to the next island after appreciating the ship's time-blistered paint at golden hour, and having a little fun with the playful crew along the way.
Back on board and heading down to Deck 5, the ship's generically titled lounge is where larger daily briefings can be held along with showcased enrichment lectures. Despite being labeled as such, there actually is no bar in the corner, at least not any longer, so you'll have to go elsewhere to buy a drink before enjoying the venue's included activities. Unless you want these products, that is. But there is free coffee to always be had from the back of the room, not to mention demos dedicated to local culinary arts, like the Poisson Cru Jason can never get enough of, so thankfully multiple samples are a product of such events.
As are maybe seconds and thirds. There's just something about raw tuna and vegetables marinated in coconut milk and lime. The most fun we had in this venue was a hilarious trivia session, including an appearance by Moana. Lectures were also quite interesting, ranging from Polynesian navigation to the history of Aranui Cruises, and yes, even its cargo operations, including discussions of Thor Heyerdahl's disputed theories. But without question, it was the freight-related one that excited me the most. Much like Art Vandelay, I'm interested in importing and exporting.
He's an importer.
Importer.
And exporter.
He's an importer-exporter.
Let's also celebrate Aranui 1, Aranui 2, and Aranui 3, but not Aranui 4 because there never was one, skipping ahead to Aranui 5. As to the question of just what cargo the ship delivers, would you believe a helicopter once? Besides building materials, and the heavy equipment needed for it all, of course, plus even a challenging car on occasion, that in this case had to time the swell just right to gun it into position on the dock, not to mention livestock back in the day. Hiva Oa was a day I decided to stay on the ship for a little respite, and I'm glad I did because it turned out to be one of the more exciting displays of cargo transferring that demonstrated just how good the freight activity is choreographed in conjunction with passenger movements. What I also found interesting was the varied scale of it all, with some cargo genuinely being parcel-sized and others entire containers worth, some requiring heavy storage deep within the bow, with a pertinent reminder to always put safety first, and machining it all and maintaining it all is a constant job, it would seem. Perpetually washing and painting surfaces in between loads, and then reseating the cranes before any given departure. To reduce friction, the ship may not have stabilizers, but it does feature bow thrusters. Given tugs would be infrequent where it moors alongside.
Plus, this unique grill hanging off the stern means some foods are prepared there. Now that's something else you don't ordinarily see on a cruise ship. Which next brings us to Deck 4 and the main restaurant where guests are often serenaded by live music from the entertainment staff once more. All meals are expectedly included here, but like Jason said, the venue does feel a little congested when full of passengers and servers, and there are very few 2 or 4 tops, requiring most lunches and dinners be shared with others. On the contrary, self-serve breakfasts are quieter and less claustrophobic with a flow of come-and-go passengers during opening hours, while set times for lunches and dinners tend to cram guests in. Morning bread service encompasses fresh crepes, and always available to freely order are fruit salads, with the only extra being the option to pay for lobster tails at market price. Otherwise, set midday and evening menus are displayed outside to preview. Such tasty lunch offerings included the line's take on a Caesar salad and a fillet of mahi-mahi with vanilla sauce, which for those imbibing could be washed down with a complimentary bottle of my husband's favorite white Bordeaux wine. Before a minion-friendly banana sabayon topped with coconut ice cream for dessert. Or for dinner, Jason enjoyed the likes of tuna tartare with mango and an entree of pan-fried beef fillet with pepper sauce accompanied by red Bordeaux this time around. And this is where my husband would tell you that even though Bordeaux is most known for reds, the region's whites are also outstanding. And what could be more appropriate for a cruise in the islands than a sweet send-off of a very floating island? That is before visiting one final Marquesan island. Fatu Hiva was even the one where Thor Heyerdahl lived for a period of time prior to his famed Kon-Tiki expedition. And it's easy to see why he and his wife would have wanted to set up shop in such a gorgeous landscape.
But sadly, that does also bring us to our final instance of cargo activity off Aranui 5. Among the scenic surroundings as waves crashed on the rocky beach, visitors should take note that the Marquesas Islands are great for inland discovery and diving, but less so for any snorkeling or sunning on the shore, as better found in the Society Islands, which is why Bora Bora does also feature as a conclusion to these itineraries, which can otherwise feel a little heavy on the cultural demonstrations without some alternative activities. But there's never a shortage of shopping opportunities if that's your jam while traveling abroad. And had I been in the market, as it were, there were many items that caught my eye along the way. And that's not to say that such cultural demos weren't interesting, because they were. It's just there were a lot of them over the course of the cruise.
This is my husband's way of saying that by the end of the voyage, he was ready to mirror this gentleman simply perching in the shade and looking out at the ship.
Elder goals, am I right? But speaking of my personal jam, it was cargo, baby. And the unsung heroes of Aranui Freight, and weekend warriors with projects to complete, utilizing newly delivered materials, all while Aranui 5 stood a sentinel to the world of shipping, and its barges and pallets full of who knows what else in the way of wet, dry, and refrigerated goods, either industrial or residential. And indeed, we felt like part of it all by the end of the voyage, as we were effortlessly integrated in. So when it came time to bid farewell to the Marquesas, my friend Alex and other fellow passengers took a sprig of greenery for one final ceremony.
Wow, that really is beautiful too.
Waving goodbye to the destination with plants in hand, one by one the foliage was tossed into the sea. But it was hardly the end of our sailing, as more of the ship was still to be explored on a sea day crossing back to Papeete via Rangiroa and Deck 3.
If all the shopping ashore wasn't enough, the retail store on board is actually a seriously well-stocked variety for a cruise ship. Instead of the sometimes superfluous offerings of, say, Pandora or Effie, this one is fully practical. Oh, and look at those tipped over bottles. Did we mention how this ship rocks and rolls quite a bit? But seriously, this shop has got it going on with some fun floral wardrobe, logo items, electronics, snacks, and more. If only more cruise ships had this kind of stash, not to mention my husband's all-time Haribo faves. Which, to round out Deck 3, takes us to the front desk and reception area. While it's not much to write home about, I do like these throwback throne chairs and colorful flower arrangement, more of which are repeated at the front desk, where a beautiful wall mural backs the ever-friendly and attentive crew. By the way, the ship was impressively a floating Olympic village during the Paris 2024 Games. Conveniently, tender operations also happen immediately off this central space. And while a heavy swell can cause a massive vertical displacement, the staff take care to transfer guests on and off.
As in Rangiroa, where a jet ski gave us a speedy welcome. And we disembarked the tenders in a neat storming Normandy-style way I had not previously experienced. Even on a cloudy day, guests relished the chance to do some more swimming and snorkeling here that were less ideal in the Marquesas. And I enjoyed a little more exploring of my own. Beachcombing for abandoned concrete relics of the past, as well as little shell critters. Among the coral shores, where as it turns out there's even a vineyard. Vin de Tahiti is the only such winery in all of French Polynesia, so of course we had to check it out as we added to a growing list of very unique things. And it turns out Coral Terroir makes for surprisingly decent wine, with the Blanc de Corol being my favorite, enough to buy a bottle to take home. Had the company shipped to the States, I would have actually bought a whole case. But alas, they do not, so it's the singular bottle that must do until I return, hopefully with my wife next time. But if nothing else, once back on board, they do happen to sell and serve the wine in the restaurant. Leaving us with only Deck 2 to lastly tour, every level has a filtered water refilling station for provided reusable bottles. Not on the deck plan, but available for paid self-service, is even a bonus laundry room down here. It may not qualify as a world-class cruise facility, but the extra cost Kumuhei Spa has got it where it counts. Encompassing a Maori tattoo parlor where our friend Moana is the onboard artisan should you partake. Or if a simple massage is more your speed, there's a therapy room just for relaxing body treatments as well. I did it myself this time, but I was impressed by the long list of services available for such a small space. Less impressive but certainly serviceable for a ship of this size is the adjacent fitness and dancing center. But it's really just a gym with various exercise equipment and free weights that I'm not sure I'd want to use in the rockiest of sea conditions. And despite its name, dance classes are actually better held outside anyways.
This moment of zen brought to you by one final look at the cargo area being washed down in soothing ASMR style, while a lone canoe passes below one of the ship's hard-working cranes. Aranui 5 may not be Jeff Bezos' mega sailing yacht, but it sure tickled Jason Leppert's penchant for unique cruise experiences, and that may be the very thing that appeals to you. Which brings us to our final pros and cons. What we disliked as pains in the aft are the ship's mixed restaurant and overall dining experience, lack of USB and any electrical outlets at either nightstand, and the very wobbly motion profile without stabilizers. But what we most liked and can take a bow are its one-of-a-kind means of hybrid cruise travel, near exclusive access of the Marquesas Islands, and the deep dive into authentic cultural immersion.
Thanks so much for watching. If you would, as it really does help support us, please like this video with a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel. And why not watch some of our other ones while you're here?